And I'm keen to get Simon's view of this because it centres on someone Simon and I both know well, Preston North End director Peter Ridsdale. It's reported that EFL clubs will take a vote next month on expanding the Championship playoffs from 4 to 6 teams. If voted through, the new playoff format would begin next season. Currently, third place 6th and fourth place 5th in a two-legged semi-final. And then the winner, of course, competes in the playoff final at Wembley. The EFL's new proposal would add an eliminator round to the Championship playoffs. Now, third and fourth go into the semi-finals. It's 5th versus 8th, and 6th versus 7th, who would face off in one-leg ties with home advantage to the club, which finishes higher. So the chart at all of that is 8th would actually give you a chance of still being promoted to the Premier League. So, first and foremost, when I spoke to Peter Ridsdale, Preston director, who's driving this forward, I said to him, why is there any need whatsoever for the playoff system, which everyone seems to love, to be further shaken up?
The issue we've got is that we believe that the Championship is probably the most competitive of the English divisions. You just have to look at the league table at the moment, where you've got something like 5 points separating 6th and 15th in the table. You've got a situation where the prize for getting promoted to the Premier League is now worth £200 million between 1 year in the Prem and then if you get relegated, the parachute payments. And we've got owners who are putting in £15 to £20 million just to try and compete. So we believe that if you can actually have the league even more competitive towards the end of the season, when people can have the prize of getting into the playoffs by coming down to 8th, TV rights, media rights, investors and owners putting in more money, I think it makes sense. Now, ultimately, of course, who gets promoted will be determined by the outcome of the playoffs. But the playoffs of the last, I think, 7 years, 5 of the people who've won the playoffs are still, 5 of the last 7 years are still in the Premier League. And of those, only 2 finished third in the division. So, we think it's exciting. We think it helps media rights, it helps competition, and it reassures owners who are putting a lot of money to try and get the prize of playoffs and or promotion.
How long have you been consulting on this, Peter? What's been the reaction to it?
It was brought up in the autumn at an EFL board meeting. I was then asked to put it to the Championship clubs because I chair the Championship meetings after the board meetings. That got a very positive thumbs up. We then put our proposals and thoughts to the FA, and I think they consulted the Premier League, and we got back from the FA that they would be supportive. So it's now going to a vote of the clubs at the annual meeting the first week in March. Maybe no coincidence, Peter. You're 7th at the moment. It would suit you, wouldn't it? Well, I'd like to be higher by the end of the season. But, I heard this morning on one of the early programmes on talkSPORT that they were suggesting that, why does it need a change at all? People forget, I've been around long enough to remember the first playoffs in 1987. And in those days, the third bottom of the top flight was part of the playoffs, with then the third, fourth and fifth and the second tier. So it's been shaken up before. The National League have obviously got a different format already. And I think that to give 2 more teams an opportunity to participate, they would then be in a quarter-final where they played away from home in the first game, so there wouldn't be 2 legs. So the 8th team would play the 5th and the 7th team would play the 6th, and then it would drop into the normal format like now. It can only be for the good of the game. It's more exciting. More games matter towards the end of the season. And if the Premier League turn around and say it makes it less competitive, just look at, say, the last 7 seasons. 5 of the playoff winners are still there. And in fact, if you look at the league table in the Premier League today, the highest ranked promoted team is Sunderland, who won the playoffs. There are those, though, Peter, and you know where I'm going with this, who could suggest that potentially this is about awarding mediocrity. I mean, 8th could end up in the Premier League. 8th could. They may, and if they do it on merit on the playoff format. But, when you say it's rewarding mediocrity, just watch the Championship week in, week out. Look at the game at Leicester last night. Leicester winning 3-0 at half-time and Southampton beat them 4-3. There isn't a game in the Championship you can predict ahead of the game. It's the most competitive division there is. And I would argue on that basis it deserves an opportunity to get to the end of the season and see who can win the playoff format. Peter, what does this need to get the green light? Who votes in it? What now? Well, my understanding is it needs a simple majority of the 72 EFL clubs. So that's obviously the Championship, then Leagues 1 and League 2. I don't know what the outcome will be. It's something I put to the Championship clubs, and it's now going to a full vote of the EFL. So it's up to the clubs to decide. This isn't a personal proposal. This is an EFL proposal, which is going to EFL clubs, and it will be the EFL clubs who vote on it.
So that was Peter Ridsdale, Preston North End director. Simon, where's your take on this? I mean, I could hear you reacting in the background to it. Will it not weaken the Premier League if 8th in the Championship can get you to the Premier League?
None of the Premier League's business. It's an EFL.
No, but that's not the question.
Well, why would it? So someone who finishes 1 or 2 points behind 6th spot is going to weaken the Premier League. The Premier League can wipe out their own concern.
They could be 12 points behind them, couldn't they?
Well, they could, but historically...
But we can see the gap already.
Well, yes, and we can see teams like Sunderland gone up and created outcomes that defy the logic of what people... When you're put in a situation, by the way, about coming up from the Championship, and you have to carry the losses from the Championship, and you're only allowed to make a certain amount of losses when you get in the Premier League. How about levelling those playing fields up a little bit, so that when Nottingham Forest went up a few years ago and got sanctioned for breaching financial fair play because they were only allowed to carry the less losses from the Championship, as opposed to the Premier League sides that are already there getting far greater losses and far greater bandwidth? How about sorting that one out first before you start worrying about which teams come up from a league that's got nothing to do with you? As far as this idea was concerned, this was my chief executive's idea, Phil Alexander, from 20 years ago. We flew this kite 20 years ago, and Phil came to me and said, look, I think there's an opportunity to create more jeopardy in this division, to create more broadcast revenue, to create more longevity in the season with teams having more to play for and more consequences towards the back end of the season if we actually increase the size of the playoffs. I said,
so what happened?
I said, fill your boots, go present it to the EFL board. They put it to the EFL board. They didn't want to do it. Now, 20 years forward, maybe they do. The fact of the matter is, the only test for this, the only acid test for this, if 24 clubs vote for it, it's the end of the discussion.
What does it have to be? How many?
They've got to get a quorum.
A simple majority.
Yeah, whatever the majority is.
Yeah,
I think they'll go for it.
72, a simple majority.
I think they'll go for it.
I mean, what are the downsides to it? I mean, if you finish 6th and 5th, you're not going to like having to play another game.
No, but you still have the advantage of playing at home, don't you?
Sure you do, but you're still not going to like it because you're in a different set. So, you're now going to have to play an extra game to get into a situation that you're already in. But there's 18 teams in that league that will think they can get 7th and 8th spots at times during the course of the season. And so with that in mind, it expands the league, it increases the broadcast opportunity. What the clubs will do is a very simple equation. Does it bring us more money? If it brings us more money for opportunities and creates greater interest in this league and greater broadcasting opportunities and greater intrigue, we'll do it.
Yeah, but 20 years ago, when it was your idea, would it have brought you more money? And if so, why didn't they support it and see it through?
Because people at that time had a different view. I mean, 20 years ago, I was sitting in rooms with people arguing about the fact the Football League had no money. And we couldn't borrow. If anyone wanted to borrow any money, you can only go to a high street bank. All the high street banks were closed. They were in the middle of a banking crisis. We need to open up the financial landscape. Well, actually, we want to talk about the referee's underpants. Oh, wonderful. That's wonderful. That's a really great discussion. Real meaningful stuff, right? And so now what you've got is a commercially different set of mindsets inside. Look at the scale of people inside the Championship now. Look who runs these football clubs. There's reasons why the Premier League don't like giving them any more money. It's because there's billionaires sitting in this division that go, why have I got to give them some of the distribution from the Premier League when you've got billionaires down there that can fund their own football clubs? You've got movie stars that are selling shares in Wrexham for 500 million quid worth. So look at the scale of intellectual thinking and the scale of business and the opportunity that now exists inside the Championship. And 20 years ago, the thinking was different. There was a different sort of leadership.
Got a good chance now.
Well, if they vote for it, yeah.
But Simon, there's Leon, the Leicester fan. Expanding the playoffs is ridiculous.
He wants to worry about League One.
It's going to water down the quality of teams that could get into the Premier League. This is just greedy owners who want money now. Do
you know the other thing?
Don't worry about it because he'll be in League One. But the fact of the matter is that greedy owners to do what? Go and point me to which one of these bleeding football clubs are making any money. Because at the end of the day, the reasons why you need more money is because you've got to pay the core product, which is the players, the money to be able to create the outcomes. And somewhere down the line, if you're very lucky, you might be able to sell your football club and make a profit. But between then and then, you're going to be bankrolling a football club because 95% of football clubs in the EFL lose money. So where does this greedy owners load of old cobblers come from?
Also, if you take it away from the business element and you look at it purely from a football, if you're a player or a supporter, then
I think the playoffs are a wonderful
it's
thing.
a win-win because the players are more engaged to try and nick that seventh and eighth space it'd be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So, all of a sudden you've got a fan base that could be engaged for the last 2 months of the season that wasn't.
this will also appeal to the American owners, because if you look at the MLS construct and how their competition plays, there are so many places available at the end of the season to get into a various opportunity.
Yeah.
It's about 8 or 9 of the teams still have a chance to get in the playoffs with 2 games to go.
So the World Cup playoffs work this way, Jim.
Yeah, it might be brought in next season. If it was to be brought in now, the 2 clubs looking at 7th and 8th would have been Preston, Peter Ridsdale,
won't bring it now, will they?
and Bristol. No, of course not. It'd be next season. So we shall see. We shall see. Is it evolution, or if it ain't broke, why fix it? How would you vote? We'll see how they vote, because the vote is going to take place fairly soon across all 72 EFL clubs. We shall wait with interest to see how that goes. What colour were the referees' underpants?
God knows. Probably the same colour as mine after I sat down with John T. Wilders.
Very good. Knockout, in fact.